Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey you guys, it's Jory. I wanted to invite you into a meditation challenge that I am doing this week, October 26th through the 30th. As I've been talking in so many of my recent episodes, the importance of meditation as a foundation to our overall wellness, emotional regulation, balance, and ultimately the foundation for a mindfulness practice. So if you want to join me in a 5-day meditation challenge and have the opportunity to win one of my beautiful Journey Forward journals, go over into the show notes and join my Facebook group. I'll be doing it every day, Monday through Friday. All you got to do is watch the meditation, click done when you've done it to be entered into the drawing for my journal. I hope to see you there. The past couple of weeks have been like master classes in mindfulness, and I'm going to continue this model now through the end of 2020, as this has been such a challenging year for so many of us, and it just hasn't seemed to let up. So now more than ever, I really want to be here as your guide and your resource to how to live a more mindful life. And why does that matter? Because if you remember from a couple episodes ago, I really believe that mindfulness is at the root of our wellness and our ability to have greater balance and emotional regulation. Because the key is that we want to be able to have an ability to respond and not react to whatever is happening. And I know I say those words over and over and over again, and I don't want it to lose its meaning or its power. But the key is really in the simplicity of your response. We always want to believe that otherwise, if the external factors are different, then we'll be happy. And those external factors are so rarely within your control. And if those external factors, such as what's going on in the world, what's going on in your relationships, what's your thoughts, what's your emotion of the moment, what's happening in the stock market, what your weight is, how well behaved your kids are at that moment, how easily you're getting along with your partner. I mean, there's so many layers to our lives that are so out of our control. But what is always within our control is our response. And our ability to gain greater clarity and greater distance in how over-attached we are to some of these circumstances. Because the closer we are to it, the harder it is for us to see what's actually happening. The greater distance we create, the greater ability to observe it, to see with some greater clarity and detachment from such strong emotion or expectation, the greater ability to make a discerning choice in, okay, so this is what's arising. What am I going to do about it? So in the previous episodes recently, as we've talked about, October has been Emotional Wellness Month, which is why I talked about mindfulness being about creating greater balance and emotional regulation. We've talked about the myths of meditation. Hopefully some of those resonated with you and you were able to see where you possibly get stuck in starting or maintaining a meditation practice. And last week's episode, just to recap where we're coming into for this week, last week's episode was all about understanding that mindfulness is a way of being. That it's not something you add to your to-do list, it's something you add to your to-be list. It's the quality of presence in which you show up in every single moment. So what does that actually mean? It means, are you distracted? Are you reacting? Are you living on autopilot? Are you even present? So meditation is the formal practice that builds the foundation in our brain and in our body to be able to observe with greater clarity, greater compassion, less judgment, less attachment to whatever is coming up. But mindfulness is that ability to put it to use in each moment. So you may be wondering, okay, all of that sounds lovely. That all makes sense. But really, how do I actually be more mindful? What do I actually have to do? So you've started some meditation. You found the opportunities within your day to slow down, to breathe, to observe, to just notice what's arising and then choose your response. Okay, that sounds great. But now what? Well, I'm going to give you the one word answer that when I used to teach mindfulness to kids, when I did for many years, I did it for about 4 years, kids, even as young as preschoolers could understand this practice, you guys, and they loved it. But what is the one word answer about how to be more mindful? It's all about awareness. Without awareness, you can't change anything because you simply can't change what you're not aware of. So what is it that we are actually talking about when I say to be more aware? What is it that we're actually wanting to be more aware of? Well, it's actually a lot of things. We can start with our internal stuff. So what's going on internally? We've got our thoughts. Okay, so what is it we want to be aware of our thoughts? Well, remember I always say, our brain produces between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. Because of a negativity bias, the majority of those are going to be negative thoughts. But we tend to have a thought. And most importantly, where we most get stuck is that we actually believe the thoughts. We get caught up with the thoughts begin to spiral. One leads to the next. And it just becomes this automatic pattern that we so easily get sucked into. And we get sucked into it because we're not aware that that's the pattern we're in. With awareness, we're able to see the thoughts and be able to observe them and then be able to say to ourselves, wow, look at that thought. Look how quickly I made this assumption. Look how quickly I believed the worst case scenario. Look how quickly my insecurity arose out of this one particular thought. Look how reactive I got when this thought came up. Whereas when you have awareness with your thoughts, you can just pause and be like, wow, that was a really interesting thought. Okay, so that thought's here. What do I want to do about it? Just because it's here doesn't mean I need to believe it. I need to act on it. I need to take it as truth. I can just simply notice it and be aware. And you guys, this is literally how I say it to myself in my own mind when this stuff comes up for me. And sometimes I'll say it even out loud if nobody's around. But I will literally say to myself, wow, that's interesting. Look what I'm thinking about again. Because I used to get really stuck on negative reactive patterns of my thinking. And when I was able to just observe it, it just like threw the monkey wrench into that wheelhouse of reactivity. So don't underestimate the power of being aware of your thoughts. And we'll talk so much more about it. But right now we're really talking about awareness. Okay. So we want to be aware of our thoughts. We want to be aware of our emotions. Okay. Why do we want to be aware of our emotions? Well, because we believe our emotions define us. We believe that when the challenging ones arise, that they're going to be permanent. And we don't know how to sit with what's uncomfortable. And when we notice our emotions with greater awareness, it gives us the possibility of not needing to do anything, but just sit with it, which is really hard. And if you're sad, angry, depressed, in fear, have anxiety, the last thing you want to do is just sit with it. But let me tell you, that is the key to getting through it and not getting stuck in it. It's totally counterintuitive. It feels really, really paradoxical. But pay attention to your emotions and get really curious when especially the challenging ones arise. And notice I'm not saying negative ones, because I don't believe them to be negative. I believe that we have a negative interpretation of the emotions that we find challenging. That does not make the emotion in and of itself negative. It simply just is human. It's part of our human experience to experience that huge range, as Jon Kabat-Zinn would say, full catastrophe living. It's all of it. But we tend to attach and over-idealize the emotions that are greater ease for us. And I get that. I want to feel happy and peaceful and joyful almost all of the time. But if that's what I'm striving for, then when my challenging emotions arise and I don't have the skills for managing it, then I'm going to get flooded. Then I'm going to get stuck. Then I'm going to get overwhelmed, which is only going to make those emotions feel even deeper and stronger and more pervasive. So having awareness of the emotions, just like the awareness of the thoughts. Oh, that's interesting. Look what I'm feeling right now. Okay. It's just an emotion. It's not permanent. It doesn't define me. It's not going to last forever. How can I just manage to ride the waves of this emotion with greater self-compassion, with greater ease? And if I can do that with more awareness, the less power the emotion has over me. Okay, moving on to what else do we want to be aware of? Aware of sensations in our body. You know, some of the earliest studies back in the late 70s in which Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's considered to be one of the grandfathers of mindfulness in the Western world, who took these tools from this ancient contemplative wisdom practice into a modern medical setting, where he helped chronically ill patients and those who had chronic pain practice mindful meditation in which they can learn to observe the pain in their body. And what study after study after study has shown is that those who've gone through the practice and programs of mindfulness and mindfulness-based stress reduction have a lower relationship to their pain in their body, because they're able to just see it for what it is. They're able to just observe it rather than be in fear of it, rather than react to it, rather than be in judgment of it. And when we can observe our bodies with greater awareness and compassion, it actually decreases our experience of pain. So noticing the sensations arising and noticing how am I interacting with it. Again, it comes back to the thoughts. As I feel sensation or pain in my body, what are my thoughts? Am I judging it? Am I angry about it? Am I in fear of it? Well, the more we can be in awareness and simply observe, helps us get to greater acceptance, which is going to decrease any negative experience we're having with pain. Okay, so those are really the internal things that we want to pay attention to, but there's so much external stuff that we just stay distracted to. So we have lots of distractions in our environment. One of the biggest ones is our digital devices. How many of you guys, and I just want you to sit and think for a second, pick up your phone without even awareness that you've done so? So I'm going to give you a little phone challenge, should you be willing to accept it, is every time you have the inclination to reach for your phone, I invite you to pause and just see if you can decrease the autopilot, the automatic reaction to just grabbing it without even being aware that you're on it. So notice at which moment of awareness you realize, oh my gosh, I've picked up my phone. Because my guess is that it happens without awareness so often, you are wasting a lot more time than you actually realize. Think about it if you're, checking your email or doing your work or talking to a family member or a friend, and you are unconsciously reaching for it. It's just an unhealthy pattern. If you can bring more awareness to it, then you can be able to act with more intention and hopefully get more present as you're less distracted. But we've got plenty of distractions in our environment. We've got sounds, we've got noises, we've got disruptions. And without awareness, we get carried away with them. So those are the typical things that I talk about, of things that I want you guys to be aware of: thoughts, emotions, sensations, distractions. You'll hear me talk a lot about that when I guide a meditation. So what are some of the other things that may be a little less obvious to you, maybe a little bit more subtle, that I would like for you to start to become more aware of? I invite you to be aware of your expectations. Expectations on yourself, of maybe what you thought you could get accomplished in a day, of maybe, let's say it's about eating, about how healthy you want to eat, and maybe expectations of how realistic that is given whatever plans you may have going on, expectations about exercise, expectation about habit change, expectation about reactivity, expectation about how you want other people to act, expectations on particular outcomes. I work with so many clients, and at the root of so much that they experience that causes them some pain and suffering is a result of unmet expectations. And it's my assertion that it's unmet expectations because they were unaware that it was even an expectation they were holding on to. It truly was a belief that life was supposed to unfold in a certain way, without any awareness that it could have been any other possible outcome, or maybe even unawareness as to their own contribution to the pattern that they're upset about. So expectations, as I've been saying for years, are the quickest path to suffering. And piggybacking on expectations is its other really evil best friend, are assumptions. Assumptions get us so stuck. So again, I invite you to get really curious. What assumptions do I have? What are the assumptions I have about other people, about my relationships, about outcomes, about my own response or reactivity to things? And at the root of our expectations and our assumptions is likely just some really well-ingrained patterns, some really well-ingrained habits, some really well-ingrained mindsets. And when I say by well-ingrained, I'm not necessarily saying they're good things. I'm just saying that they are so well established that you don't even realize it's an option to change any of them. But once again, the key here is awareness. When you can bring greater awareness to all of these things, one of the most beautiful things that can come of it is you realize, wait a second, I actually have agency around these things. Just because this is the way it's always been does not mean this is the way it always has to be. And if I'm noticing that my own expectations or my own assumptions or my own judgments is causing me greater frustration, anger, sadness, depression, anxiety, maybe I can shift my internal response rather than always wait for some external factor to change. Another evil twin of assumptions and expectations are judgments. You guys, we get stuck in so many judgments of people. And you know what? It's simply part of being human. And I really try. And I had plenty of opportunity this week to get stuck in judgment. And sometimes it took over a little bit more easily than I would have liked. But when I am really in my practice, I have an ability to say, wow, look how quickly I went to judgment around that. Look how quickly I got stuck in that judgment. And look how quickly I became self-righteous in my belief about myself as in relation to this judgment. And it's like this automatic spiral of reactivity. It makes me anxious. It makes me angry. It makes me frustrated. It makes me sad. But when I can remember, and the key is the remembering. The key is the remembering to just be aware and notice. Okay, yeah, look at that. That was just a judgment. Let me just sit with the judgment and just notice what's coming up for me right now. Let me just sit with it rather than react to it. And when I have that ability, when I am greater in awareness, everything shifts in my emotional reactivity. So I'm going to remind you, it's not about not having a judgment, because that's just going to be human. That's just what our mind is going to do. The key is to be aware of them so as the judgments don't take over. So as the judgments don't put you on the fast train to reactivity and righteousness and anger. Let's just stop with noticing them. Another thing to be aware of is our relationships. And, I work with so many clients each week where their relationships are the main focus of their challenge. And one of the keys to improving any relationship, I believe, is quality time and attention. And how do you recognize that that's what you need? Well, you pay attention and you be aware of where you're not getting that quality time and attention. And there's a lot of barriers to this. This is not always easy to do. And I advise couples to create at least 5 minutes a few times a week to have non-transactional conversations and connection. 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week. And sometimes that's even really hard to meet. But when we're not aware of the dynamics in our relationship, they simply, we shut down in giving the relationship what it needs. Not just for your partners, but same thing with your kids. How aware are you in your relationships? How aware are you of all the things that we just talked about? Your thoughts, your emotions, your assumptions, your expectations, your judgments, and how it shows up specifically in your relationships, right? Because these things can show up to how you feel about the world. But to me, the key, and one of the reasons I believe that everybody should be practicing more mindfulness in their lives, is to be in better relationship. And I define this as being in better relationship in 3 different areas. Better relationship to yourself, better relationship to your partner, better relationship to your family, your kids, your parents, your friends, right? So it's to yourself, your significant other, and other significant relationships in your life. But as I see as evidence from the couples and the families and the individuals and the teens that I work with, without giving awareness to the relationship, we simply lose the momentum of connection. We have greater inability for vulnerability. And as we know, thank you, Brene Brown, vulnerability breeds connection. And if we're not aware of our busyness, of our distractions, of where we get stuck in our head, that's going to impact our ability to be present in our relationship. So there's a lot of things to practice awareness of. But again, okay, this all sounds great, Jory. Let's practice awareness of all these things. But I want to get to the crux of, but why does this actually matter? Because here's the reality. You're missing so much of your life. You're missing so much of your life because you're either staying distracted and really busy so as not have to deal with things, especially the hard things. You're possibly externalizing, placing blame on, the external circumstances or the external person in the relationship and not taking ownership of your own contribution to the dynamic. You're possibly staying stuck in the mindset, I can't change. Or I don't want to have to do the hard work to create the change, right? You want the outcome without having to do the work to get there. But sometimes you just have to do the hard work to get there. But it's really easy to just stay stuck. And if you're stuck, it's likely because you're not increasing awareness of what's arising. Because here's the ultimate reality. Awareness sucks. Now, I know that's counter to everything I just said. I think awareness is the answer to everything. And now I just tell you awareness sucks. What do I mean by that? I think awareness sucks for so many of us because with awareness comes responsibility. With awareness comes what I think is the call to action. And it's a lot easier to stay inactive and to stay stuck than it is to be aware and create change. So to be aware takes a lot of courage. And I'm guessing that there's things in your life that aren't going well. There's areas in your life, there's relationships where you're just really feeling stuck. And you're waiting for something externally to change for it to start to flow once again. When in reality, the key is within you. And yes, awareness sucks because it's hard to create change, but it's also the key to your freedom, the key to your happiness, the key to your peace, the key to your overall balance and wellness, the key to your emotional regulation, the key to your happiness, regardless of what's arising in the external world around you, because there is a lot to feel really shitty about right now. And without awareness, it can truly bring you down. But when you can still feel at peace and at ease, regardless of what's arising, that's all started because you've slowed down to be aware of how can I respond differently right now. So let me just remind you, there is so much more within your control than not in your control. But it's a perception of how you view the world, right? Will I only be happy when, fill in the blank, those external circumstances get fulfilled? Or will you be happy when you have the tools to shift your response in a way that serves you best? The key to happiness is in the response, not in the details. And the ability to get to that mindful response is going to start with you becoming more aware. I know it's hard. I know it's easier to stay on autopilot and to blame and externalize and to stay frustrated and angry. It's easier because it requires less work. But it's not the path for you to find the ultimate peace, happiness, and contentment. And now more than ever, in the midst of all this chaos of 2020, I think we're being called upon to say, how can I be happy and peaceful and content, regardless of what's arising whatever is not within my control, right? How can I do that? Well, as soon as we become aware and we see our habits and patterns and we see what's arising, we have the ability to shift our response. And I know this is all easier said than done. It takes work, it takes practice, but it is possible. And I know because I've done this. Didn't happen overnight. It is an ongoing practice. I've never fully arrived there. I'm always practicing. But I notice that when I feel most down, when I feel most triggered, when I feel most in judgment, it's when I am back on autopilot with expectations, with assumptions and judgments. But when I slow down and become more aware, that is when I jumpstart my compassion, I jumpstart my acceptance of what's arising, and I jumpstart my contribution to what I'm feeling, because that is where I have 100% control around. So hopefully this has given you some insight into why awareness both sucks and is so damn important. I think awareness is key. So keep listening to upcoming podcasts. I am going to continue to invite you guys to practice in new and different ways. But I'm really building this foundation for you so you can see what you need to do to gain that greater happiness, peace, and contentment, to create greater joy despite the chaos in your life. It is possible. And I'm here to guide you guys through it because so many of these tools can feel really confusing in how to practice. And I want to help you guys see how to slow it down, how to make it attainable, and how to be able to create the change that you are seeking in your life for you to find joy and peace and happiness, regardless of what's arising. It's possible. And I'm here to help you. So thanks you guys so much for tuning in today. And just take a few moments throughout your day after you've listened to this to just have moments of awareness. What are you noticing? It's like hitting the pause button and just getting really curious on what you notice. And when you increase that awareness, you can then decide, how do I want to respond to it? All right, you guys, I hope you have a great week. Be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat, visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.